is Salam Media, coming to you live from South Africa.
It is 12:35. You are listening to the Mid-Morning Talk with your host, Maryam Mkwanda. So our next guest is Heizal Nagginda, who is a 24-year-old climate and environmental activist from Uganda. She is the founder of Climate Operation, a youth-led organization whose mission is to educate Ugandan children about climate change and its intersection with other social issues such as health and gender. She is joining me to chat about Plant a Flower Day, which is going to be taking place on the 12th of March 2021, which is this Friday. Just in case you guys are still in a dwell and are not yet with us, 12th March is Friday. Hazel, hi, how are you?
Thank you so much for having me. How are you today?
I'm good, thanks. And yourself?
I'm good. It's 1 p.m. here in Uganda, so we're just about to have lunch.
All right, and it's almost 1 p.m., being the 12:35 here in South Africa. And speaking of which, although it's autumn in South Africa, it is spring in some parts of the world. And because it's spring, what better way to welcome the month than by planting a flower? What is the history behind this day?
So Plant a Flower Day. So basically, in my opinion, I feel like Plant a Flower Day is where we not only connect with nature, but we also actually really connect with flowers, and how are we going to use the planting of flowers to actually not only connect with nature, but with ourselves. And usually when people are thinking about, for example, just planting plants, not just even planting flowers, they think it's a very strenuous job. But you actually can do it really simply. Like, I was chatting with a friend and I was telling her, if you want to plant a flower, what you can do is you can start with a potted plant. You don't have to mow your whole lawn down because you want to plant, because potted plants are very easy to take care of, though they need a little bit more watering, but they're easier to take care of. And also buying from your local greenhouses, that is also amazing because they know which flowers are going to actually thrive in the environment that you live in. So those are the recommendations that I would give to someone that wants to participate in Plant a Flower Day. It's really amazing. Flowers are just so beautiful, and connecting with nature, really spiritually, it's very calming, and it gets you to actually think about, to give perspective to your life, to think about things in regards to, this is not just about me, how can I start maybe saving the environment, how can I improve the way I connect with the environment, can I stop using plastic, things like that.
And how is this day celebrated?
Okay, so Plant a Flower Day, how is it celebrated? So basically what we can do on Plant a Flower Day, you can, because of COVID-19, usually we would go out there into the environment and like plant flowers. But because of COVID-19, we are encouraging people to like either do it on social media, whereby you raise awareness about the different kinds of flowers. Personally, what I'm doing is that, because I live in the city, so I have a very small backyard. So what I'm doing is I'm going to actually plant a few flowers on the 12th, very tiny potted plants. So that is how you can commemorate this day. Something else you can do is just general environmental awareness. I think that is really amazing when it comes to Plant a Flower Day, because I believe it's not just about planting flowers, because flowers are plants. It's all about planting, not just the flowers. So there are very many ways in which one can participate in Plant a Flower. They're not just planting flowers. If you don't, because I believe not everyone lives in a place that has greenhouses. So what you can do is you can raise awareness. You can talk about how you can actually take part in your community. Here in Uganda, we have a few organizations that do a lot of environmental outreaches, so you can volunteer with them on the 12th. Many environmental organizations like Climate Operation, we are going to be planting on the 12th. So getting involved in things like that is amazing.
Yeah, and I was going to ask you about flowers, because I mean, it is a Plant a Flower Day, but sometimes people call plants flowers as well. So it's just like, okay, some plants are flowers and then some plants are flowers. So,
Uh-huh.
what tips do you have for people who are starting off and have no idea on how to go about planting a plant or a flower for the first time?
That is an amazing question. Well, the first tip I would have is just start. If I'm being honest with you, Mariam, I was very, very intimidated when I was starting my planting life because I thought, this is going to be very hard. And because we live in the city, we don't have that much space. So what
Yeah.
we did is that we got, I feel like in Africa, we all have buckets, or maybe everywhere we all have buckets. So what we did is that we got buckets that we don't use and put soil in them. Then we just started planting very easier to take care of plants because there are these plants that need a lot of maybe water and sunlight. Some need shade, some need both. That is what I was saying. If you have a local greenhouse near you, you can go. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Ask the people that take care of the greenhouses which plant is going to thrive better where I live. Is this going to require shade? Is this going to require more sunlight or both? How much water? I think that's the first step. Then the second step, I believe, would be kind of dedicate your time to it. Not a lot of time, but let's say you have a job. So when you have a job, you open your window. Let's say you have window plants. You open your window so that your plant can get a little bit of sunlight, water it, go to work, come back, water it again, close your window. So it's kind of like very simple. Then plants have weeds, so it's very good to weed them out. And I would also really encourage people not to use the commercial type of farming because that's really bad for the soil. So I have been educating myself on regenerative agriculture. So it's basically we don't till, we don't spray, we basically use composting whereby we get food waste, put leaves, and it becomes compost, kind of like manure. So that's what we use to fertilize our soil. So if the soil is healthy, your crops will thrive. So that is something I would also advise the viewers to do instead of using things like tilling, using pesticides, because our crops get pests. But something I've realized is that if the soil is healthy, the crops will actually be very pest resistant. So that is the advice I would give them. But other than that, have fun with it. Planting is very fun.
A great advice you've just offered there, and then it just made me realize that we have a little garden patch at home, growing spinach, butternut, gem squash, baby tomatoes, etc. And the yard is actually quite big. So once they mow the lawn, they often
Uh-huh.
take that mowed grass and they throw it on the plant beds, and
Yes.
it keeps it moist as well because while the
Mhm.
sun is burning the grass at the bottom, then the soil is actually quite nice, and we can reuse that grass because
Exactly.
it's still moist and it's still good enough for the plants. Um, for us in South Africa, what tips would you give for us in terms of, well, what flowers or plants can we plant at the moment? I mean, we are in autumn
Um,
and it's almost
okay.
winter.
Oh, it's almost winter. So
Yeah.
so basically I would advise for you in South Africa, you need to plant crops that thrive a lot in the shade because it's almost winter, so the sun is actually going to go down. So you need to plant crops that thrive when it's not too hot because if you plant crops that actually thrive in the sun, they are going to die. And something I would also advise is not to really water the plants a lot because with the winter, the air is really humid. So you don't want to really, over intensify your plants with water because they might not thrive. So instead of maybe watering twice a day, you can water once a day, or instead of watering, let's say 2 days, you can water like once or thrice in a week. So that is kind of, you look at the temperature. Like now, for example, here in Uganda, it's really hot currently, though the rainy season has just started. So what we are doing is that we have been watering our plants a lot and planting crops that thrive in the sun. However, when it starts raining and let's say we want to plant, we are going to plant those crops that don't thrive in the sun, but actually thrive a lot in the shade, in the rain, because we don't want our crops to die. So for South Africa, I would advise you to plant crops that are going to thrive when it's a bit shadier, when it's not too sunny, and not to overwater because the air is going to be very humid. So overwatering will actually really dampen the what? The plants.
Mm-hmm. All right. And how can the planting of flowers and trees make a difference in climate change?
That is an amazing question. So here at Climate Operation, what we do is that we not only educate children about climate change and the intersection with climate change, but we also involve them in tree planting activities. So I was talking about the connecting with nature. You know, when you tell someone about climate change and its human impact, that is just you're just giving them information. But when you actually involve them in those activities that connect them with nature, this encourages them to take further steps to ask themselves question, how can I actually, start taking care of the environment? How are the habits that I have? For example, before I really got into environmental conservation and all this, I used to really litter water bottles all over the place until I realized that whenever you throw a water bottle on the ground and the sun hits it, the methane that goes up is not only bad for the climate, but it's bad for, the trees, the plants. So
Mm-hmm.
involving yourself in this kind of activities will encourage you to take further steps, take care of the environment. And I would also like to say that taking care of the environment is not something that is very serious because people think it's a strenuous job. You can actually just start by, having conversation with your peers, with your friends, having conversations in regards to like, what do you guys think? What should we do to, change our habits? Are we littering? Can we use our food waste? Can we use it like for composting? Like, for example, you guys, whenever you mow the lawn, you put the grass in the gardens, things like that. So it takes very tiny steps, but getting involved in planting trees, in planting flowers, basically in just planting, that makes it very personal for an individual to actually start taking care of the environment around them.
Yes, so definitely starts with us and the habits, our daily habits, our daily routines, and teaching our kids these habits as well, like not littering. It
Mhm.
doesn't mean that someone is paid to pick up the litter that you should litter. No, at least do yourself and the environment a favor and not litter or pick up the litter if you see any.
Yeah.
Uh, Hazel, would you like to share your social media handles with our viewers and listeners?
Yes. So if you want to follow my personal journey, it's at Hazel Patricia 1. And then if you want to follow Climate Operation, it's at Climate Operation on Instagram. We are hosting very many activations with schools, and we are going and teaching children about the environment and the intersection. Then we're also going to communities. With communities, we are not only teaching them about climate change, but we're also including the concept of health and gender. We want to involve more women in the environmental sector because truth be told, the environmental sector is not only very, can I say, white based, but it's also very male dominated. So engaging women in the environmental sector, because for example, in Uganda, very many women actually are the ones upholding our agriculture sector, but they are not supported. So when we go to communities, we tell them the advantages of, engaging with agriculture, with the environment. Then with the children, we tell them about how climate change impacts their health, because if we tell them about the health impacts, this is actually going to change their behaviors. So it's kind of like a cycle. So yes, those
Mm.
are my social media handles.
All right. So thank you so much for your time, Hazel, and for sharing that information with us. And have fun on Friday and send us your pictures. We'd love to see them.
Thank you so much for hosting me. Cheers.
Pleasure. Bye.
Bye.
That was Hazel Nagginda, the founder of Climate Operation, and she's also environmental activist, telling us about Plant a Flower Day, which will be taking place on Friday, the 12th of March. And you can also plant a flower. Go to your local greenhouse, your plant shop, or wherever, and buy yourself something that you can plant. If you're not into planting, then buy a plant. Succulents are really nice and really modern these days. I want to get myself a snake plant. I heard that it's one of the nicest and best plants to have indoors. So, yeah, go ahead and do something good for yourself and for the environment on the 12th of September, which is Friday. It is 12:49. You're listening to the Mid Morning Talk on Salam Media with me, Maryam Mkwanda. We will be right back.